In modern times, Christmas is all about warmth, happiness, and spending quality time with family and friends. But about a century ago, it was common to gather around the hearth on a cold winter's night and try to spook one another with blood-curdling tales of the paranormal. Number 1. A Christmas Ghost Story. I have to admit, I'm not a fan of Christmas, not due to any Scrooge-like tendencies or anything, but because of what I saw when I was 7. I was very excited to see what I was going to get on Christmas Day, you see. The grandfather clock in the hallway was slowly ticking. I remember it all too well. I found myself shaking as I turned the living room doorknob. Why was I that excited? Why did the metal feel so cold? To not wake my parents, I slowly pushed the door open. It would squeak if you did it too fast, and crept into the living room. It was dark and cold. I mean so cold I could make out my breath and what little light there was there. Was the heating broken? The switch to the dimmer lights was next to the door. I put them on and slowly turned the dial. In the diminishing gloom, I could make out the armchairs and the Christmas tree, beneath which I got a glimpse of the presents. Then I saw it. The leering, skinless face that was now just an inch away from me. Its pupilless eyes seemed to stare right through me as its stench hit my nostrils, like rotting meat. The thing reared back, its lipless face falling behind the ragged hood it wore. It turned away and lurched and limped towards the tree. I could see more of it now. It was stooped and withered, emaciated and cadaverous, draped with the rotting rags of what I guessed must have been a robe. This thing seemed mesmerized by the tree, its head swiveling eerily from side to side as it contemplated what was before it. Then, it turned and looked directly at me, lifting a long and bony finger up to its face, where its lips may have once been. My mouth was agape. I was rooted to the spot. I tried to scream, but no noise came out. Finally, I managed to slowly retreat from the living room, turning off the light as I went. I closed the door quietly and crept up the stairs, too petrified to do anything else. I ran to my room and hid under the covers. Only then did I manage to finally, silently sob with fear. The next morning, I put on a brave face and pretended to be excited as I unwrapped my presents with everyone else. Mum must have known there was something wrong, as she asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was just tired as I couldn't sleep the night before, as you do when you're 7 and it's Christmas Eve. She hesitated for a moment, but brushed it off as we picked up all the torn wrapping paper left behind. But all I could think of was that thing that I saw the night before. I barely played with any of my toys. I just kept seeing its face every time I closed my eyes. As the years have drawn on, I've pondered this in some detail. We've forgotten what Christmas really is. It is how we used to survive the darkest and grimmest time of the year. That's what all this tinsel and merrymaking and Santa Claus all stems from. That need to shut out the darkness and the howling blizzard outside. Yet, I think there is something else too. All that crap about Christmas being magical is true. We dress it up with elves and reindeer with red noses, but it's more than that. There's a reason why we used to tell ghost stories at Christmas, until Halloween took over. It is the one time of the year that the boundaries between this world and the others are at their thinnest. No wonder why they have a festival and a nativity this time of the year. Consciously or not, we're warding off the horror that seeps into our world during Yuletide. Maybe all the rituals, tacky though they are these days, appease the things that wait and ward them off for another year. What's a Christmas tree but an old pagan totem decorated in candles, a ward, or an appeasement? These days I just blot it out of my mind and pretend I'm Buddhist or something. But there's one last thing I will never forget. All those years ago, the next night, the scrawled note I found under my pillow. It said just one word. Shh. Number 2. Meeting the family. Meeting my ex-girlfriend's family during the holidays was the worst weekend of my life. They lived in a different state than my ex Kaylee and I. We were on Long Island in New York, and they were all the way up in Vermont. Our relationship was still kind of new, but she seemed to think it was serious enough for her parents to invite the two of us up there for Christmas. Kaylee had a really small family, so apparently it would be just the two of us, her brother, and her parents. Pulling up to the house was a pleasant surprise. The house was beautiful, and it stood on a huge, well-kept property secluded from any other houses. As Kaylee and I got out of my truck, her parents came out of the porch to greet us. First impressions, they seemed very friendly and weird, an unexplained type of friendly. The father didn't smile, but he shook my hand, patted me on the back, and said it was great to meet me. The mother hugged me, showing a lot more emotion, but something about her face was a bit off-putting. She had a really wide smile that seemed to be exaggerated. The house was as beautiful inside as it was outside. It had a wooden lodge type atmosphere to it. A little while later, I met Katie's brother Paul, who got home from work. He was a really socially awkward dude. He had a bowl cut and had a whole tattoo sleeve running down his arm. We had dinner, which was awkward at certain moments, but other than that, it was kind of normal. After dinner, we watched a Christmas movie in the living room. I tried not to make eye contact, but I could tell Paul kept looking at me for extended periods of time on a few different occasions. At one point, I looked back at him, and we locked eyes for like 3 seconds before he turned back to the TV. He was giving me the most judgmental stare I'd ever seen, and it made me only more uncomfortable. At the end of the night, Kaylee and I were in the guest room, which had an attached bathroom. While Kaylee was in the bathroom freshening up before bed, she left her phone on the nightstand. I saw she got a text from her mom, and for some reason feeling a bit snoopy, I got up to read it. It was not at all what I was expecting, and it changed the whole night completely. Briefly on the screen it said, "Text from Mom. Do you think he suspects anything yet?" But the message quickly switched to new message. I'm guessing because she had an iMessage notification set to hide once the phone locks. I wanted to read what was said before that, but her phone had a password, unfortunately. I could actually feel my heart pumping now. Kaylee came back into the room. I kind of gave her the cold shoulder because my mind was racing. She seemed to notice. She was texting on her phone a bit before turning out the lamp and going to sleep. I couldn't sleep though. I was rolling around for hours wondering what the text meant and if it was about me, and what the hell was up with her brother. It was exactly 2 o'clock in the morning when I heard Kaylee get out of bed, but she was doing so very quietly. Normally, I'd find this to be a kind gesture, but under the circumstances, I was finding this suspicious now. I didn't move. I pretended to still be asleep. I heard her come to my side of the bed and stand there for a few moments, then leaving the room and walking downstairs. I heard someone else walking downstairs, and then another person. Something was going on. I went over to the top of the stairs to listen to what was going on down there. There was a bunch of talking, but in very low voices. I walked down a few stairs quietly. The talking was coming from the dining room. It sounded like they were planning something. I heard Kaylee say something like, "When I go back up, you stand by the door." Then I heard her brother say something. But what was going on was really starting to hit me in the face, or at least what I think was going on. I went back to the room to grab my stuff and leave. As I was grabbing the keys, I noticed something in the corner of the room. I turned the lamp on, which exposed Kaylee's dad sitting in a chair in the corner of the room, blank expression on his face, behind his glasses, staring at me. I screamed at least 4 times, "You're all crazy!" as I ran to my car. I put the car in drive practically before the car was even fully on, and floored it out of the long driveway back to the road. I didn't stop once except for gas, and at the gas station I checked my phone and saw that Kaylee texted me saying, "What the blank happened?" I didn't respond. Not until later that night when I got home I said, "I don't know what you and your sick family were planning on doing to me. I don't want to know. Don't ever contact me or come near me again, and I won't report this." I said that only because I knew there was no proof of what happened, or what could have happened. She never replied. Number 3. The gas station. This story takes place 4 years ago, and it still haunts me to this day. It was Christmas night, and my family and I were driving home from this fancy restaurant. I, unlike my family, wasn't tired, so the 45-minute drive seemed perpetual. On top of that, my little sister was constantly moaning about how her friend didn't get her anything for Christmas. We stopped at a gas station so my family could use the bathroom. I stayed in the car, as I had already gone before we left. Once they got out, I started to play a couple of games on my phone. I looked at the time and saw that 10 minutes had passed, so I immediately wondered what was taking them so long. As soon as I peered out of the window, I saw a man staring at our car. The man startled me as I didn't know how long he'd been watching. What made it even more unnerving is that he had a plain blank face. No expression was shown. It was hard to make out any features as it was pretty dark, and he wasn't standing in an illuminated part of the station. He was about 5'9" and looked to be middle-aged. Once he saw me notice him, he started walking towards the car, and I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't scared. Luckily, my dad came back with the rest of the family, just as the man took a couple of steps. My dad apologized and told me he had been in an argument with the cashier. I didn't care. I was just glad that my dad was with me. I took another glance at the man outside, and he was still staring, but this time he had an annoyed look on his face. We drove off, and for the rest of the car ride, I couldn't stop thinking about that man. This wouldn't have been too bad if it had ended here, but it didn't. Later that night, I was watching YouTube while everyone else slept, and luckily for me, a storm was raging over us. I enjoy storms. It makes me feel cozy as I'm laying in bed. I put my phone down and just enjoyed the ambiance. That didn't last for long, as I heard something smash into the window behind me. I lurched forward and nearly fell out of the bed. I thought a bird had just smashed into the window. I parted the blinds, and what I saw next haunted me. I saw a man standing out by my parents' cars, looking up to my room. I took a closer look and I nearly had a heart attack. It was the same man that I saw at the gas station, only this time, when our eyes met, he grinned. Being the 14-year-old that I was, I did the manly thing and screamed at the top of my lungs. My dad came running down the stairs and entered my room. "Why the... are you screaming?" he said. I told him about the man and I explained everything that had happened. My dad grabbed a baseball bat and told me to call the police. After about 10 minutes, the police turned up outside of our house and found the man hiding in our shed. He got arrested, and that was the last time that I saw him. The next day, my dad inspected the house and we found that the handle on our back door had been damaged, but not completely broken. This gives me an eerie feeling, as if he actually managed to get in, he could have harmed us, or even possibly killed us. Number 3. The Sleepover. The year would have been 1996. My parents and I lived in a small home that was around 90 years old. I stayed in this house from the ages of 7 to 19. From the very day that we moved in, I felt that I was not alone. One year around Christmas time, I was having a friend over to spend the night. The heat had just turned off out of nowhere. She and I were sitting in the living room watching television when the temperature dropped substantially. As I rose to turn up the heat, the Christmas tree began to shake violently. Ornaments were falling off left and right. My friend and I were absolutely terrified. We ran upstairs as fast as we could into my bedroom and lay down underneath the covers. My pet white cat was soon to follow and curled up right beside us. I was so scared that I forgot to shut my door all the way. When I gazed out of the dark hallway, I was horrified to see a tall white figure run down the hall. I turned to my friend, and she acknowledged that she had seen the exact same thing. She never spent the night ever again, or came over for that matter. Number 5. The Bright Light. I had an unusual visitor on Christmas Day 2008, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't Santa Claus passing by my house in Bloomington, Indiana. The day started in typical fashion, with the opening of gifts around the Christmas tree. I served an early Christmas dinner for family and friends, and everybody departed by 5 p.m., except my sister and brother-in-law, who live with me. They were sleeping in a bedroom at the end of the hall with the door open. I went to my bedroom with my dog Toby and shut the door securely. I was just dozing off when I heard the latch on my bedroom door open. I waited several seconds for my sister or brother-in-law to ask me whatever they came to say, but there was no other sound. It was almost 7 p.m., so my bedroom was pitch black. I had left lights on in the kitchen and the bathroom, and there were lots of Christmas lights in the living room, so the hallway would have been well lit. I would be able to see whoever was at the door just by lifting my head. I pushed the blankets down and lifted my head from the pillow, but just as I would have been able to see who was in the doorway, an extremely bright light hit me right in the eyes. I shielded my eyes and yelled, "Turn that effing light out! You're blinding me!" The light immediately disappeared and I heard the bedroom door latch closed. My bedside light has a touch lamp, so I tapped it on and looked around the bedroom. There was no one in the bedroom except me and Toby. Toby jumped off the bed and went to the door without showing any signs of alarm. At first I wasn't frightened because Toby is a Dutch Shepherd, well trained to be an excellent watchdog and a proven personal protection dog. Since Toby was already up, I decided to go let him outside and see what my sister and brother-in-law needed. When I went into the hallway, I could see both of them still in bed. I took Toby to the living room to let him outside, and there was nobody there either. So who opened my bedroom and turned a spotlight on my face? Like most people, the thoughts of loved ones are always close at hand during the holiday season. When I first went to lie down, I was thinking how happy I was that my small family had enjoyed a pleasant Christmas, but it would have been so much better if my mom and my brother had still been alive to share it with us. I would like to think it was my brother's spirit stopping by to say, "Merry Christmas, I still think of you too." I haven't been able to debunk this strange event or find any kind of rational explanation. I'm half afraid that my heart stopped during my sleep, and the light I saw was the bright light that people report after near-death experiences. Leave it to me to see the stairway to heaven and ruin my chance at eternal paradise by saying, "Turn out that effing light." I've made a mental note that if I ever see another bright light, to clean up my language. I hope you all enjoyed these stories. I wish you a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to do so you won't miss out on next week's video.